Hey, y'all, I'm Shane Sams, the host of the Membership Masters podcast. I'm a self-employed, location-independent online entrepreneur, and my family makes its entire living with online membership websites. I started this podcast to bring on other experts in the online business world, amazing entrepreneurs who are crushing it out in their respected niche, and I wanted them to come on and teach you what they know so that you can grow your business and you can build $1 million membership too. I've been so excited about today's interview for weeks now, ever since we got it on the schedule, because I'm inviting onto the podcast my good friend, Trey Stinnett of TheFlow.Coach. Trey is an incredible entrepreneur that I had the pleasure to meet in Colorado at a workshop a couple months ago. And he taught a concept called wealth dynamics that literally blew my mind and within weeks changed everything that we are doing in our online business. The wealth dynamic system is designed to get you in flow, that timeless state where you sit down to do some work that you love and you look up and you're like, wow, 5 hours went by? That felt like 5 minutes. This system that Trey teaches helps you identify who you are and what you should be doing in your business. But then it goes a step farther. It helps you identify all the people that you need on your team, and it helps you get them in flow so they are experiencing that timelessness as well. Imagine having a team where everybody loved what they did, where everybody supported each other in the exact way that they should, and everybody was moving the mission forward together. Imagine how much happier you would be if you were constantly in flow. Imagine how much happier your team would be if they were constantly in flow. And imagine the benefit to your customers when you've got a united team being led by a person in flow. On today's podcast, we are going to go through the 8 wealth dynamics profiles. If you've ever taken Myers-Briggs, if you've ever done the Ennegram, or you've ever done any kind of personality test, you know that they're great. They tell you a lot about yourself, but they don't have any practical, tactical advice. Wealth dynamics is going to tell you exactly who you are and exactly who your team should be and exactly how you should make decisions in your business. Trey is America's leading expert in the wealth dynamics system, and I know you are going to learn a ton about you, your business, and your team today. I said it once, but I'll say it again. You better sit down and listen to this podcast this week, y'all. And you better get out a notepad and you better take some notes, because this is going to make a huge difference in your business. I know it's made a huge difference in our business, and it's going to change the way you do things and help you get unstuck and bust through plateaus that may be holding you back. I had a blast recording today's episode, and I cannot wait to play it for you. But before we get started, I got one question. Are you ready to become a membership master today? All right, let's go. Welcome to the Membership Masters podcast, brought to you by membershipmasters.com. This is the podcast where we teach you how to get and keep more members every single month. I've helped thousands of people start, build, and grow memberships, and I interview some of the biggest membership owners anywhere online. My goal is to help you build $1 million membership of your own. Brick by brick, let's do it together. Come on. By the way, we're recording right now. So hi, Trey Stinnett. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
We're live. We're ready to go, man. This is no mercy. We just I don't want to miss any of the good.
We're already live.
I don't want to miss any of the good banter. None of the good banter. You know, you just like to get in here.
I can see steam coming up off your desk. You got some tea there, or some coffee there. There it is.
Flip Lifestyle merch mug. Got the steam coming off. Just made some coffee. This is my I call it splash calf, not half calf. I kicked caffeine when I had COVID, and so I've been making decaf, but then I got these little dippers, like tea bags, so I can get just a little bit of caffeine. Just a little pick me up, but I'm trying not to get back hooked on the drugs, you know?
Yeah. I gave up. I've given up coffee so many times. I'm currently in a no coffee phase of my life.
Yeah. A buddy of mine named Jeff McMahon, he says he likes to, he has a great quote. I don't know if he stole it from somebody, and maybe I'll just steal it from him and stop giving him credit eventually. But he says, I like to live in the majority. So he's like, if I want coffee, but if I don't want to drink coffee and I don't want to get a caffeine, if I have coffee 3 days a week, but I don't do it 4, I'm feeling pretty good, right? It's moderation, and I really have embraced that a lot in a lot of things in life. Like I don't want to, I like caffeine. I like coffee. I really enjoy, I think it's the ritual, man, like getting up, turning on the coffee pot, smelling it come alive. Then you pour it in the cup, and you got that adult bitter man taste that you get from coffee. You know what I'm saying? And then it's just like, I only drink half of it anyway.
No, though, Shane, moderation's never been my thing.
All in, baby. I tell you what,
I like everything, all of it, all the time, as much as possible.
That's right. So I tell you what, we're gonna go all in on wealth dynamics today. No moderation for the wealth dynamics. That's the greatest transition in podcast history, right there, man. So, all right, Trey. So, let's tell everybody listening here about my latest obsession. And I've went down this rabbit hole as deep as you can get. Trey and I spent 15 hours together last weekend, and we wanted more. We needed another hour and a half to hang out and talk here on the Membership Masters podcast.
Yeah, you're like keep going. Everybody else is like tapping out. You're like, I want more.
Everybody's falling asleep. There's people like the Zoom cameras are just falling off their desks. And I'm like, we got 10 more hours of this. So we're gonna coming back on Monday. What's going on? Tell me and everybody else about wealth dynamics, what it is and what it's for and what it's used for and how it can really skyrocket people's businesses.
Yeah. Well, you know how a lot of small business owners, they're really excited when they start their companies and then their company begins to eat them alive and they're working all of the time and they're stressed out and they're, I watched my dad do this where it was just like so much hard work and it feels like the business owns you instead of you owning the business. That's the life that I had before I discovered this system. And basically the short version of the way to understand it is we all have a unique path to wealth. We all have a certain way that we are going to be in flow. We've all experienced that flow state in our life where things are kind of easy. And then we have things that are the opposite of that, where it's grind and difficult. Well, what wealth dynamics does is it allows us to understand which activities are going to be the ones that are most in our flow, and which activities are the ones that are most grinding. And then how do we identify the people who, for them, it's the opposite of that. And then by teaming up, we begin to put ourselves in flow and create more value in our lives.
So when I heard you, I was in Colorado at an event, and I had never met Trey before, never heard of wealth dynamics. And the event was hosted by a mutual friend of ours, Aaron File, and we were there, with great intention, and we all had specific reasons for being there. And Aaron at her events brings in speakers, and she brought you in to talk about wealth dynamics. And I remember vividly when it clicked, like 10, 15 seconds into what you were doing. As soon as you drew the square and you started on the profiles, right? Like I remember when you drew like the second one of the profiles, I just leaned over and put my hand in my head, my head in my hands, because I realized that I knew kind of what I was when you started talking about it. But my team, I had put almost every member of my team was in the wrong seat on the bus. And I was making my team do things that were totally out of their flow, right? And it was like it just like revealed to me all of the tension and why there was tension on our team and why there was tension even in our business, and why we were like maybe stuck a little bit in certain places, because it was just like a giant flashlight from heaven shining down on the business once I saw you go through all the different profiles. Do you find that a lot? Like people are like, oh yeah, I'm doing all these things and it's the opposite of what I should be doing. And that's why I love my job. I love my career, but I'm miserable in my job. Do you find that a lot when you go over this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, that's the big awakening, right? For me, and it starts before you even have a team. I was making tons of money for me, hundreds of thousands a year. And I was traveling around the world and I was working for celebrity entrepreneurs like Damon John and Tony Robbins. And it was glamorous, but I was exhausted. My body was literally breaking down from how hard I was working. Now, I thought that was just because of how hard I was pushing myself, because I was, working really long hours. And to an extent, it kind of was. But when I discovered wealth dynamics, this was like, I don't know, four years ago now. It was actually on my way out of a festival. And a friend had told me about it. And he's basically showed me that the reason I was so stressed out was because the work that I was doing on a day-to-day basis was conflicting with the work that was actually my natural genius. And I had just never considered that before. And the truth is that it's not whether or not business is hard or business is easy or work is hard or work is easy. We've all had those moments where we're willing to show up and hustle and put in work that doesn't feel like work. We've all experienced what it's like to enjoy our business for this moment or that. So it's not that it's hard or not hard. It's that some activities are in flow and some activities are not in flow. And when we're in flow, it's more natural. So a lot of people, when they discover the system, they go, oh, that's something that I've had to force myself to get good at. And this is something that I'm naturally good at. So I just assumed the thing I'm naturally good at isn't where I should put my focus. And I've been focusing on the stuff that takes more work. I mean, this is just like in school. If you're good at you get an A's on everything, but you get a D in one class. Everybody from your parents to the school teachers wants you to just focus on fixing the D rather than recognizing the genius gift that you have at everything you got A's in, right? And so it's just that self-awareness that comes from not just understanding what your profile is, but the contrast of that with the other 7 profiles and how this stuff really works.
What's that quote? If you judge a goldfish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll always think it's stupid. Right? Because
that's Albert Einstein.
Yeah, Albert Einstein, man. It's like it's a freaking fish.
Right? He said everyone's genius. Everyone.
Yeah, man. All right, so let's jump. I think the best way to understand.
Got it.
What I've learned on this too is like I looked at the things I was in flow with after we left Colorado, and really this weekend was beautiful. The workshop that you hosted. I was at a cheerleading competition, guys, and I went. I would go and I would sit. I took Jocelyn and Anna Joe to the gym. I'd drop them off, and then I'd turn on my computer and I'd do 3 hours. Then she would perform, and I'd go watch her for 5 minutes, and then she would go back. She was with the team the whole time. I couldn't even hang out with Anna Joe. So, and then I would run back to the hotel and I would do 4 hours of workshop. And like it was funny. The day went so beautiful and so fast because I was so in flow, man. Like my daughter was on stage and she's kind of a star personality and she was killing it. I was in flow, hanging out with a group of people, which is my life juice, basically. Like whenever I'm in a group. And man, like that day, it was tiring, but it didn't feel long. And that's what it's all about, is like being in flow. And I think the best way to understand this is probably like through the profiles. I think that's where it kind of clicks. So would it be cool maybe to go like maybe explain the square as good as we can do it without, visuals. And then maybe we could just go through the profiles, because I think everybody listening is going to hear their profile. And it would be cool to kind of walk through that and talk through that.
Yeah, for sure. And you were in your element, like seeing you in there is like talking to people. And it wasn't just, because it was people, it was the type of people that you want to be around. It was entrepreneurs. It was people that care about, developing themselves, who don't, they know the real answer, which is that usually when something's wrong, it's us. We got to look at ourselves. And when you're around people that are like that, are willing to do the work, everything changes. So we were actually concerned when we first created the workshops that they would be too much for like virtual because of, coronavirus and all that stuff. But we actually found like people stick all the way to the end. They're super engaged the entire time because they have fun when they begin to interact with these differentiations. And so I think the best way to describe wealth dynamics without being able to pull up the square, and, at the end of the call, I'll give you a resource where you can go watch the whole thing on YouTube. But just listening here, it begins by understanding that the wealth dynamics system is based off of a 5,000-year-old system. And that system is called the I Ching. And this is a text in China. I Ching means the book of changes. And it's about differentiation. What makes things different? What makes the seasons different? What makes the order of operations of the natural flow of the world different? So we oftentimes consider ourselves on the planet Earth. We consider ourselves having come to planet Earth. But every cell in our body comes from atomic material that was here before we got here. So we're part of nature. And if we understand that and we look at nature, one of my favorite quotes by Lao Tzu is that in nature, all is accomplished, yet nothing is rushed. So we are always like these rats in cages trying to like force things to happen. But if you step back and look at the natural ebbs and flows of your industry, of your life, the seasons of your specific business, it always follows spring, summer, fall, winter. And, that's the first thing to understand when it comes to wealth dynamics is in that same way, our businesses follow spring, summer, fall, and winter. Spring is starting something new, right? Coming up with something. It's growth. Just like, when the frost begins to melt and the sprouts begin to come out of the ground, that is that spring season. It moves to summer, which in our businesses is bringing the product to market, marketing, sales, partnerships, team management. And then it comes around to delivery and fulfillment and actually showing up in the here and the now with the when and the where. And then winter is about, well, we've collected everything that grew in the summer. We've harvested it. But what do we do now to make it through the winter until we get back to spring? Oftentimes entrepreneurs skip that step. They go straight to spring and start creating the next thing when they haven't actually taken the time to look at their rations and say, okay, well, how much money do we make from this? How much profit is there from that? And then how can we optimize and improve from there? And so these 4 seasons of business, right, also lay over to the 4 basic types of people. And we have people that naturally are going to gravitate more to the spring energy, some that'll gravitate more to summer, some to fall, and some to winter, which means that you're naturally going to be better at one of the 4 cycles of your business than the other 3. But the more that you try and go work on becoming better at one of the ones you're less natural at, you just become not as focused on the one you are natural at. And so this really becomes a mechanism for self-discovery, but also for partnership, for teaming up, for being able to find the other people who can help you grow and build your business. So, based off of that, the main things that we then look at once we understand those energies is we say, okay, well, what's the difference in the opposites? So the opposite of summer is winter and the opposite of spring is fall, right? So the equinoxes and the solstices. So if we look at the spring is all about new. It's about ideas. It's about creativity. It's about innovation. And this is, if you look at personality typing, and that's one of the pieces that lays over the system, this is a highly intuitive person. So the way that we think on a, call it like a spectrum, right? So I'm huge into like non-duality, and that is to discover that hot and cold aren't different. They're just degrees of the same thing, right? So if hot's on this end, cold's on this end. Well, the way that we think, we are either thinking intuitively or we are thinking from a sensory thinking dynamic. And a sensory is more what's around me, seeing the opportunity and doing something with it. Whereas intuitive is what could be, seeing the future and being able to connect the dots to create something out of nowhere. And the degree to which we are more intuitive, we're the spring energy. And the degree to which we're more sensory, we're the earth energy. So we're more grounded in the, I would say the autumn energy. I didn't introduce the elements yet. These also align to the elements of the I Ching, which are a fun way to think of them. Spring is wood, right? Fire is summer. Earth is the fall. And then metal is the winter. And these are four of the
and
five.
For everybody that listens to this podcast, you know that I am a blazing inferno of fire. That's what I discovered when I looked through this the first time. It's like on a square and the right side is blaze. And I'm like, oh, I am all the way over there. And Jocelyn, for those of you who listen to the Flip Lifestyle podcast, is winter. And she is all the way over there. So we were definitely the opposites attract in our marriage.
You're summer, she's winter. And what's interesting, and I'll get into kind of the crossovers here, is Shane, you've got wood as well. And when you add wood to fire, it just blazes even more, right? So like there's a sequence to these things. But when we look at the elements, right, you have then the thinking dynamic, which we talk about, and then you have your action dynamic. So now it's like, okay, cool. Well, we know that Shane, being more fire energy, he has a different action dynamic than Jocelyn. Right. So that's actually the difference between summer and winter. It's not the way they think, it's the way that they act. And so somebody that is in a more summer energy, somebody that's the fire element, they're going to be outgoing, right? They're going to be extroverted. But this doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to be the life of the party and they don't want alone time and they don't recharge on their own. I think all of us to an extent have introverted and extroverted parts of us, right? But when we talk about action dynamic, what we're measuring is how do you get things done? If I were to give you a task, if I were to present you with a challenge, how would you solve for it? And a fire energy person, somebody with that element who's blazing and in the summer energy, they're all about people. So their superpower, just like a person who's wood energy or in the spring has a superpower of ideas, and a person who's in the fall has kind of a superpower of knowing when and where and seeing things right in real time. The fire energy person, they have that ability to just connect with people, understand people, know who is the right solution for the challenge. Very different from Jocelyn or from a metal or steel energy person, somebody that comes from, the winter frequency. They are much more about, think about it. This is not the summer when you can just go grab fruit off the tree. This is the winter when you got to eat what you got in the stores. And so it's about being specific and systemized and, articulate and looking specifically at what is the detail, what exactly needs to happen. And so for you, just handing it off to somebody else, if you're a metal energy person, isn't going to feel right because you need to know how it is done. In fact, most of the time, through your introverted action dynamic, meaning doing things yourself to get them done, you're going to be asking the question how and doing it yourself. And so that contrast between, whether or not you're going to do things yourself or do them through other people, that's a natural tendency. And so rather than resisting it and being the person who normally is out connecting with everybody and suddenly you're trying to read instruction manuals, right? Instead of resisting that, it's about leaning into, okay, great, I'm so good at connecting with people. How can I go out and connect with even more people?
It's amazing.
And how can I use more people to be the solution?
Yeah, man. And this first layer, it's amazing how deep this onion peels. Like, I got like a couple hours in Colorado. Then we did I've talked to you back and forth since then. We've done the workshop now, and it just keeps going deeper and deeper. And it's like you're turning the camera focus, right? And like you've got this massive lens, I mean Hubble telescope style lens, and at first everything's blurry and you're like, why is it so blurry? And it's frustrating. And then every turn it gets a little more in focus. And when we got back from Colorado, I started here. I started with the dynamo, the blaze, the steel, and the tempo. And I made every one of my people take the wealth dynamics test because I wanted to know exactly where they were on the spectrums. And it was so funny, man, because like we realized everybody was in the wrong seat. I was the only person in the right seat for some reason, right? Because I'm the star podcast, energy, summer energy out there, like networking. And we realized immediately the biggest problem in our business was no tempo, no autumn. Like nobody was in charge. No, here's the problem. I was in charge of tempo. That is not good. Oh yeah, I'm totally dynamo summer, and I'm just like, and I realized how bad that was frustrating the entire team, right? So I came back and I looked, and I had a tempo person, I had an accumulator on the team already, right? And I basically said, you are now the White House chief of staff. You are in charge of me. You tell me where to be and what to do, and then you're going to go through all the you're now the project manager, right? You're going to keep the trains running on time. And man, light bulb, the whole thing changed. I started becoming infinitely more productive. Everybody else became infinitely more productive. We looked down in our time tracking. All of a sudden, we had so much capacity. Like everybody gained back like 5 or 10 hours of capacity where we were maxing out 35 to 40. And it was just because right seat, right bus, right energy. And she is so in flow.
That's the genius of a person who's autumn energy is they are great with timing, right? Somebody that's dynamo. So we mentioned a couple new terms here. So we have kind of our own custom terms we use inside of wealth dynamics for the wood energy of the I Ching and the spring energy of the I Ching. We call it dynamic, right? For the blaze in summer, we call it blaze. For the fall, we call that tempo because it's all about timing, keeping that tempo. And then for metal, we call it steel. So that tempo person, right? They are just naturally going to understand time in a way, Shane, that you don't. And they may not see the invisible dots that you see, but you're the general going, we're going to go from Germany to Poland. It's 2 inches on the map, so you got 2 weeks to get there. And then the tempo guy's like the general, or I'm sorry, the sergeant on the ground. He's going, we got enemy troops at the end of the block. Like there's no way right. I'm getting to Poland in 2 weeks, right? Because they can see what's right in front of them in a way that you would have to pull yourself away from what is natural for you to be able to do that. Okay, what we've covered so far, you talk about that telescope, or maybe even a better analogy, a microscope, right? As you zoom in on this stuff, you can see a level of clarity that is useful, and you can take that and you can go use it. So if we ended the podcast right now, and all you knew was, hey, look, I have either a tendency to be more spring energy or fall energy, or I'm more summer or I'm more winter, and you just went out and started changing this one thing. Let's say you're a wood energy person and you're out there and you have a challenge and you're trying to figure out like, who should I hire or when should I launch this? Ask instead the question, what, right? Because a wood energy person gets the question, what? Opposite to that, you have your fall energy person, your
tempo
earth
person.
Energy.
Yeah, earth energy.
Tempo, you're going to be asking that question, when and where. So for you, if there's a challenge, ask when. Ask where. Now, if you're more of the fire or blaze people energy, ask who. And if you're more of the metal energy, ask how. And if you're trying to bring the whole team together and everybody's asking who and how, and the questions are pulling you apart, then you ask the super question, why? And that brings everybody back together. So we take that, it's useful, and then we zoom in more and we find another layer of usefulness. So that's the thing that really inspired me about wealth dynamics, because I had seen Myers-Briggs and I had looked at DISC and I had taken all these personality profiling assessments. And while they were cool and informative, they didn't give me something practical and useful to use at every layer of the
Yes, that's what clicked when you were talking about it as soon as we started going around the wheel and we got past this layer, which when the words dynamo and tempo blew my mind, because it was like that told me exactly where people were on the wrong seat in the bus. And then when we went down one layer and I started seeing you talk about each individual person, like, as you go, there's 4 sides to a square, right? But there's, 8 corners and sides, right? Like and it goes a little deeper and you start talking about these people, it really blew my mind. And let me tell you how I knew the result was amazing. In my chief of staffs, she's my accumulator, which is down on the, kind of in between the steel and the tempo side, right? In her last evaluation, we did this. She seemed overwhelmed, She seemed confused. This was back in like the summer, and she was, I guess, not frustrated, but like didn't really understand what was going on, right? Because I was still in charge of the tempo then, and everybody was out of ways. I just did evaluations yesterday. You know what she said, dude? She said, wow, I'm really getting this. Our mission is so amazing. I feel so good. She's like, I could see me doing this forever. And I'm like, man, you talk about a dramatic change in 3 months where you get an employee, right, to go from a little out of whack, right, and not sure what's going on to, I'm going to do this. I just want to be right here forever in this space. And I even asked her above that. She said, I feel like I'm now the linchpin in between everybody, right? I'm now the thing that keeps the trains running on time. I'm putting all the things on the shelf, and they're on the right shelf, and we know what shelf they're on, and now they're organized, and everyone else is succeeding because of her, even though she's not a people person. And I'm like, dude, that's like a month and a half of Wealth Dynamics, just putting it like right in there,
That's the promise. That's the promise of the whole thing is go from out of flow to inflow. Take your team members from out of flow to inflow. Get your relationship from out of flow to inflow by recognizing that we are different. This is a science of differentiation. And the degree to which you understand the differences between you and the people around you is the degree to which you understand them and can act on them. And so she's literally telling you like, hey, I feel like I'm an accumulator, right? Because everything you just said, like making sure everything's on the right shelf and everybody's getting taken care of and all that stuff, like awesome. But for a star, that sounds like a lot of work. Like I don't want to take care of everybody. They're on time. Like team planning sounds like a grind, right? But for her, she's like, whoa, this is fun. Let's keep going for another year, right?
It's crazy, man.
I love that. So, shall we dive into the individual profiles?
Yes, let's peel this onion one at a time. I'm just going to kind of paint the picture here real quick for everybody watching. We are on video right here as well, if you are in the Facebook group or you're over on YouTube. But so Wealth Dynamics, imagine a square. And then you're going to draw an X from corner to corner, right to left. You're going to and you draw another line from left to right. And then you're going to draw like a plus sign, top to bottom and across. So we get these quadrants that kind of form here. And that creates 8 Wealth Dynamics profiles. So let's just start at the top, dude, and tell me about the creative. Now, this is someone who's living up in that dynamo spring space right in the middle of everything. Tell me a little bit about the creative.
Yeah, you got it. So if you think of the Wealth Dynamics square as Shane said, right, it's 4 sides and 4 corners. So there's 8 possibles. The 4 sides are going to align almost perfectly with what I just described: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And the person who is at the spring, they are all the way at the top of dynamo, meaning that their thinking dynamic is mostly intuitive, which means almost not at all sensory, right? So they're going to be great with ideas, great with coming up with new concepts, strategy. If they have the skill, they'll be good at copywriting and graphic design. So they're really good if you give them a blank page and an instrument to write on the page with, right? Now that person is who we call the creator, being all up in that intuitive space. But being at the center of the square, meaning that they're in the middle of metal and fire, right? They're also going to be somewhere in between introverted and extroverted, meaning that they can use both the introverted action dynamic of going and figuring out exactly how to do something and doing it, or they can use the extroverted action dynamic of connecting with other people. Now, if that creator tends to be leaning a little bit more toward the extroverted, they oftentimes are people who start movements. They build their own companies. They launch brands, right? Think about somebody like Richard Branson. If, however, they lean a little bit more into the introverted side, then they're more likely to invent things and get patents and, you know, come up with stuff, but somebody else's brand is going to be the one that like sells and markets it. So the creator is often celebrated as the entrepreneurial type. The creators often are the ones that we see as, oh, they're going to be the most successful entrepreneurs. I mean, Richard Branson, obviously, I already said. You've also got Steve Jobs, Walt Disney, Thomas Edison, right? There's so many creative people that are in that space, but there's a kind of a superpower and a kryptonite with all of these. And while the superpower for the creator is getting things started, the kryptonite is finishing them. So if you find yourself like creative, always new ideas, you've got like a graveyard of ideas, right? I've got a whole Dropbox folder. I'm a creator profile type. Like there's all the ideas I had. And the creator's like, move on to the next one, move on to the next one, move on to the next one. And when you're a low level creator, and I talk about levels, I'm talking about in financial success, in building businesses, in building wealth, and being an entrepreneur, it's typically because you're bouncing to the next idea before you really even have time to see the first one through to get those results. And so creators are awesome, but we've got our challenges. Now,
and every profile has its challenges. That's what I've learned. You got to embrace that part of this. You can't just lean into the strengths. You got to know how to replace yourself and where you're weak, right?
Yep. You have to. And the extent to which you play in your flow and in your game. One of the things we talk about at my workshop is that there's levels of truth here, right? I can tell you right now that if you live in your profile as a creator or a star, an accumulator for 5 to 7 years, you're going to find that money is attracted to you, resources are attracted to you, things just show up, you're creating more wealth than you ever have, these random magical synchronistic moments happen, but you're not necessarily going to believe that from me saying it. You got to go experience it yourself. And so the first thing that you need to believe is simple, and that is that there are different games. Some people play the game of going out and creating things. Some people play the game of trading things that are already in the market, right? So people, like, we'll get to that one in a moment, can simply just say, look, I already see what's here. I don't need to create anything. I can just buy low and sell high. And there's other people that, they're going to go out and build businesses that they never sell. They just buy things and just buy things. And other people are going to oversee other people's stuff. So there's different paths to wealth. And the creator's path to wealth is to innovate, is to come up with new products, is to make a better way. Look at Richard Branson. All of his businesses are the same business. Finding an industry that has poor customer service and bad branding, and he comes in, he sexes it up, makes it gorgeous, gives them really great customer service, and now you got everything from Virgin Mobile to Virgin Banks to Virgin Trains, right? And that is a creator's pathway. Now that's just slightly different from the next one, which is the star. But to understand
so we're moving to the right here on the square, right? Like we go, it's like a clock. We're going from the top of the clock, 12 o'clock. We're going like over to 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, basically.
Yeah. If you think of the square in terms of the seasons, spring's up top, summer's on the right, fall's on the bottom, winter's on the left. So it is a clock. You're going to move from spring to summer to fall to winter. And we use the square for making decisions on our business, for hiring people, for choosing the original team. And when we use it, we always move clockwise, right? I've never experienced the seasons going backwards where it's like, oh, okay, I'm in spring. Now we're going back to winter and then to fall and then to summer. I mean, maybe sometimes in Texas, it feels that way, but typically, right, the seasons move in order. So if you look at that creator, they're right there. They're that dynamo. They're that wood energy, right? If you were to rotate, all the way to the bottom and be a different profile, right? But if you rotate just 1 degree to the right, so the next profile on the corner there is going to be a mixture of summer and spring, a mixture of wood and fire, a mixture of dynamo and blaze, right? Yeah. So that corner,
and we call that the star, right?
That's the star profile. And the star creates their path to wealth is through shining. A star really highlights things. So if a creator sets the stage by innovating, by getting things off the ground, the star steals the show. Right? Because the star is more blaze, more people-oriented, more extroverted, action dynamic than the creator is. And so they can find a better way to position the exact same idea or product to the market. Now, where stars often get themselves into trouble when they're low-level stars, when they're, child stars, or they're just getting started in life, is they just want to be the center of attention, right? This is how you can spot a star when they're still a kid growing up, because you're like, okay, that one needs to be the center of attention. But, we have this ranking system where we talk about like levels and things, which we may or may not get into on this call, but we call them like an infrared star is somebody that like they are desperate to try and make something work. So they're just out there drawing all this attention to themselves. The best stars are stars like Oprah Winfrey, who's made billions by shining the light, not on herself, but on other people. Shine a light on Eckhart Tolle when he comes on her show, not shine a light on, hey, look, I wrote a book about meditation. No, she brings Deepak Chopra on, right? And then Deepak Chopra actually talks about meditation. So the star is doing its best when it shines lights on others. Now, the challenge with both creators and stars, and somewhat with the next one, but creators and stars, they make money the fastest. We make it the biggest, we make it the fastest. Like we come up with an idea, we go to market, right? We can do that. The problem is because we make it so fast, we spend it as fast as we make it, sometimes faster, right? Because there's just like, your accumulator is not going to do that. Your accumulator is like going to just get little bit. But the star is like, I can blow it all today and I'll have it all tomorrow. So the most prominent stars in society are Hollywood movie stars. Talk about a perfect example of a financial train wreck. How many of those people make millions and then have nothing to show for it? Because again, it's that ability to have that star power. But for a star, your value, your ability to climb up the rungs of wealth comes from your ability to shine light, your ability to highlight others, your ability to say, look, this is my brand, this is who I am, and you are growing your brand, but you're doing it in a way that highlights other ideas or other people. And that's really the value of the star. What was your big takeaway? I mean, you're a star. You tell me.
I tell you, when you started talking about the star, like we've always, like we've all, you know, I think most people would view this in a branding perspective as the face of the company, right? And I've always, you know, we've always known we have intuitively felt our strengths. Like I'm out front on camera, I'm doing interviews, I'm talking. But when you said that in the first time I ever heard about this, when you're like, the star goes to the next level when they turn that on someone else, it blew my mind, because I was like, man, if I just turn that flashlight around, I shine it on, I can take the stage and claim the stage. But like this Membership Masters podcast, like I turn it on to you. Like, you're the star right now. You know what I'm saying? And then like my other podcast, our members are the star, right? And then, but even in my team, like it's my job to make sure that their greatest attributes are coming up and being lit up so that they can do their job and get in flow, and that we all succeed like together. That was the huge takeaway. And then the concept that really blew me away here, every other test I've ever taken like this, like the Enneagram or even the Myers-Briggs, they all have worth, but they pigeonhole you almost like into, this is you, this is who you are, and that's what it is. But the concept of the wings, like, yes, my star, like I definitely reached up to that corner as high as you could go, right? But I have this wing over in creative, which makes total sense because I love copywriting, I love creating new products, and I can have permission to not be pigeonholed, and I can lean over into that creative. And then the next one's called the supporter. I can lean into that, you know, to support my team and help that. Those were the two big takeaways I took from when I figured out my profile type. Was, it doesn't mean I'm supposed to be out there being the guy. I'm the guy that's showing off everybody else and everything else. And I can be that creative person when I want to be, and I can be that supporter when I want to be. I just have to use my star to the maximum ability to shine my light on other people. That blew my mind when you said that, because everybody thinks when you get the star profile, you're like, I'm a star, baby. I'm the star of the show, right? But then you learn that's not what it means, right?
Yeah.
So, it goes in there.
It is and it isn't, right? So I think, you know, and that's another layer you're peeling back, which is to say that, yeah, you also have wings. You're not going to have just one way you show up, but everything that I teach, and in the Flow workshop, you know, my website is TheFlow.Coach. I'm all about flow, right? That is my thing. When you are being a star, you are in your zone of genius. Yeah. Now, the word genius, if you think about the way we use the word genius in society, we save that word to describe people or concepts that defy understanding. And we say that person is a genius at the piano. That person is a genius at the way they understand astrophysics. You're saying that they have a level of intelligence and understanding that is beyond what you can explain. And when they used the word genius originally in ancient Roman times, they were literally talking about basically a genie, like coming into the actor on the stage as they were performing. And they were saying you could see that person was inspired by God while they were performing. So that word genius means that you have something else going on besides just your, you know, mechanical brain and functional movements that's causing whatever is happening to happen. In other words, when Shane starts rolling and getting into flow and speaking on the podcast or on stage and talking, there's something else there. There's almost like a spiritual component to it. When you're in your wings, your creator and your supporter, those are your zones of competence. You're good at those things. You're competent in those areas. But that extra little click that happens where things just like start flowing, you're going to find that more in star than you'll find anywhere else. And the way that you know for sure that you've been in flow is when you're done with the activity, you have as much or more energy than you had when you started. Yeah. So if you find yourself doing a certain activity, and even if you're good at it and you force yourself to be good at it, but you're exhausted, you're tired all the time. This is actually how I discovered wealth dynamics. I was so tired. I went to a mentor and I was like, dude, I just made more money than I've ever made. I like am number one and all these different things, et cetera, et cetera. I'm traveling, all the stuff that I thought was going to make me happy. And I'm so exhausted. I'm so tired. I said to me, you're doing the wrong things. Now, he didn't understand wealth dynamics or the systems or anything. He was just a mentor telling me you shouldn't be tired all the time. Something's off. Yeah. And then thankfully, on my way out of Burning Man that year, I found this system and was like, oh, this totally makes sense. So let's talk about
hold on one second. I'm just going to piggyback that one time, then we'll go on. I had to stop doing member calls at night for that exact reason. Because man, when I get in there, I got 100, 200 Flip-Flop Style community members hanging out, answering questions. I'm on camera. I'm talking to my people. And like, I would get off the call at 10:30 when we do them at 9:00. And I would just be like up until 4, like doing stuff because I just got, I know I was getting supercharged from the universe, like He-Man, right? And it was like, I had to stop doing that because I was like, no, we're doing these at noon and I'm going to have a great afternoon so I can go to bed because I had more energy when I was coming out of it. All right. Next one is the summer supporter.
It's the supporter, right? So this is your other wing, right? So in that same way that you're able to be a creator, obviously everything you've created inside the flipped lifestyle community, all the programs and all of that stuff, right? You came up with that, you created it. Now, I'm sure it was inspired and, synthesized and all that because that's what we all do, but you still created it. And that same way, you have the ability to support others, to see the possibility in your members, to see the opportunity in your team and support them bringing that to life. Now, the supporter profile, this is people like, Jack Welch or people like Steve Ballmer who helped Bill Gates build Microsoft. They're typically the number 2, the COO, the person that is supporting the value creator. Now, a big mistake here as an entrepreneur would be to assume that I'm saying that you can't start a company if you're a supporter or you can't be the CEO. Of course you can. It's just to say that you will find yourself in much more flow if the activity that you are doing as the inventor of your business, the creator of your business, the founder of your company has to do more with people than it has to do with creating more products. Right. So whereas the creators come up with the product and the star is shining light on the product, the supporter is connecting people to the idea of the product. So the supporter can be somebody who is so extroverted that they go through the week just meeting this person and that person. And at the end of the week, they're like, I met all these people and they have no idea why. And they have not found a way to monetize all those connections. And so this becomes the big challenge for the supporters. While they're a genius at being able to meet and enroll other people in things, they don't always have an agenda. They rarely have a system. The details are typically going to not come naturally. And so, young supporters often just avoid or ignore the details. And older supporters have forced themselves to have structure and systems in order to make sure the details are still looked after. So even if they've gotten skilled at it, it's still not in flow. And so the supporter, again, this is going to be really great with people, is going to be challenged around systems. And so if you think about as a supporter, well, how do I then make my wealth? How do I create my value? Well, if the star is creating a brand and the creator is creating a product, you're creating relationships. And so for you as a supporter, it's about who do I know? And then how can I connect that person to somebody else that I know in such a way that value transfers from one of them to the other through me. And when it does that, I'm now creating and building wealth. And so you get business models like doing business development where you go out and you make connections and find affiliates, or maybe you go to a value creator who has a really great program and product and you go manage finding them all of the partnerships that they need, right? So as a supporter, you're leaning so much more into the people side. My wife's a supporter, and that was super valuable for me because as a creator, my wings are one we haven't talked about yet, which is a mechanic, and my other wing is star. So I don't have that supporter. I don't have that natural, just like going out, connecting with people. Like I'm a star, so I'm an outgoing guy, or I have the star wing, so I'm an outgoing guy and enjoy connecting with people. But like one to many and one and done, and then I go back to my cave and go build something, right? That's me. She can stay in the market all day long, talking to people all day long. And she can be at the end of talking to people. And like you said, she's more energized than she was when she started.
It's amazing.
And so that supporter really is that summer energy. And if you are a supporter, don't take this as meaning that you can't, support your own thing, but do recognize the opportunity in supporting others, whether it be clients or value creators.
That's another really hidden point there too, that I've learned about wealth dynamics over the past month and a half or so. And I think the reason I love this system too is because it honors everyone and where they want to be. Like you have the Gary Vaynerchuks and these other people running around like, if you're not an entrepreneur, you suck. And if you don't own the company, you suck. But this system is about creating wealth within the company, without the company, like together, and like getting everyone to be happy where they want to be. Like some people don't want to own the company. They want to support the people that run or own the company, right? And that's so in their space and they feel so comfortable and good there. And that's where like true like community and team really takes place. Like the supporter, like for us, like I could see it like even in a membership space being like, what a great community manager. like people come in, they're connecting people together in your membership community. They're just leading all the people in the group, right? And I'm kind of like, I can be that person, but again, I'm more on stage. I want to be on stage. I want to be going and getting people into the membership. But like, I want to get that right person in there to be like, oh, you're Fred. Nice to meet you. Do you know Sally? She's over here. And oh, you need this course? Oh, cool. Like, I'm going to support you in that. Like, right. Like, that feels like where it would fit even in a membership community. Like if you had a really good supporter as like a community manager, not a customer service agent, because that would probably kill that person if they're just in the Zen, the desk all the time dealing with angry emails and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like having that support within your business, this isn't just being the entrepreneur, it's getting that right person in place that has a genius of connecting people, not just competent at it, to really like keep your community flowing. Because if people find other people in your community, they will not stop paying you at all.
To an extent, you probably experienced that when you came into my orbit, because Grace is that supporter. I'll never forget, we were sitting by the fire in our backyard in Austin. It was starting to get cold outside, and I love having campfires in my backyard just ever since I was a kid. And we're sitting there and we're talking about wealth dynamics. I was pretty new to it at the time. And she says to me, she goes, well, what do you think my profile is? She had never taken the test. And I'd been studying it. And I said, no question, you're a supporter. And Shane, you should have seen her reaction. Like, her face softened and she just like started tearing up. And she goes,
dude, I'm telling you, it's that spiritual and emotional when you figure this stuff out.
He was like, all of you are creators. You're a creator. My dad was a creator. My brothers were creators. Jolie, my best friend's a creator. Creator. She was just like, everybody around me is creators. And so I've been trying to figure out where my role is, where my place is. And I keep trying to create things, create a product, create a company, create a book, right? And she's like, I can just support. And it was so powerful for me, because that was the moment. It was only like 2 months later that we decided to become business partners for the first time. So I love that you and Jocelyn have been doing this for a while. I was just the entrepreneur and my wife was raising the kids, and we did not work together until Wealth Dynamics brought us together and we started partnering. And dude, everything from talking to customer service inquiries, onboarding people, welcoming you to the community. I don't know how many times Grace probably texted or emailed you before you came to the workshop, during the workshop.
Make sure you can get it was amazing.
Like, all of that. And none of it feels like a grind to her, right? None of it feels like I should be doing something else, but I have to handle this customer thing. It's like her joy and her pleasure to get on the phone and help people and make sure that they're supported. And that, if you're that person, it is so valuable. And, there's another layer to this that we won't get into today, which is that each of these profiles, I'm speaking to them from the perspective of the wealth builder. I'm speaking to them from the perspective of the entrepreneur. There's another perspective of this, which is on teams, how do each of these people play out? And so again, that'll be another conversation, but
there is a different flavor to that for sure. It's a different flavor when you get into the team part. But I think what I was trying to stress was like, it's okay to be on the team if you're a star. It's okay to be the business owner if you're a star. It's okay. All of these profiles can what do you want? You can be either one, and that's okay. This gives you permission to do that. And it also gives you a way to make a great living and never hate your job, right? Every day of your life.
It also helps you avoid making really silly mistakes, like the 3 times that I tried to start companies with other creators. We started up like 3 creators, and we like so exciting, and we're all like, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And we have this big idea, and then nothing happens, or it does happen. And after the business gets off the ground and we have brand attraction and money's coming in, everybody's like, okay, great, I'm going to stop doing the grind work. And then everybody stops working because everybody was having to do grind work. And then like one of us is like, well, I'm the founder, and it just becomes a mess. So it's really about avoiding the mistakes. One of my opening lines sometimes is, if you're reading books, listening to podcasts, taking information from people, there is an 85% chance you're taking the wrong information, or 87.5% chance, right? Because if there's 8 profiles and only one is right for you, you need to know both what your profile is and the profile of the person you're listening to, so that you can have the context of their suggestions, right? I've heard people we'll get into lords and mechanics in a little bit. Like, I've heard people on stage telling me to do strategies that are lordy mechanic-y stuff. And it's like fingernails on chalkboard to me. And, I feel like, well, God, I got to go force myself to do that thing. When in reality, there's a completely different strategy that works great for a creator that would get me just as much or more results than that strategy that's right for me. So let's move into the next profile, which is going to actually be the bottom right corner. So now we've moved, from spring into summer, and now we're getting to the summer fall overlap. So this is that person that has that extroverted action dynamic. They can go out there and connect with people, right? And, the supporter being halfway, right? And it's on the side there, halfway between the star and this profile. That supporter has that extroverted action dynamic, but they're in between intuitive and sensory. So now this person has more of the sensory, right? And they have that extroverted action dynamic. So that means they think in the here and now, seeing what's right in front of them, but they're still really connected to people. So it's like the star connected to people, but the star is thinking really fast and one to many. This profile we call the deal maker is all about one-to-one. Get it done, right? In real time, make it happen, close the deal, understand people. And when you're talking to a deal maker, they're typically going to speak a little more slowly. You're gonna feel that groundedness. Sometimes you'll even hear their voices somewhat more sultry, right? Whereas you or me, we're dynamic and we're talking, we're fast and we're big and we're talking. Theirs is a much more like velvet, right?
Dude, listen to this. Someone the other day in my Voxer program told me, because in Voxer you can speed it up to like 2x and 3x, and they looked down and they were going to hit it slow back to 1, and they were like, dude, I thought you were on 3x. You were so excited and you were just talking so fast. I was trying to slow you down. So I've never heard you say this before. That makes so much sense between the star and the deal maker, dude.
And they like the one-on-one. So you talk about how you want to be one to many. They want to be one-to-one. And if you're a deal maker, your path to success is going to be owning your relationships, right? So just like the supporter owns their relationships, but it's going to be bringing that relationship to a deal in real time and making it happen. And then leveraging to get a bigger deal and a bigger deal and a bigger deal, right? The star goes on stage and gets a big check, goes on another stage and gets a big check, right? The deal maker might do one deal a year and they'll make a ton of money, right? They might do one deal, with one person, make more than the creator made with 50 products. So being a deal maker just means that it's okay to slow down. It means that it's okay to look for what's here in the now. And the most famous example of a deal maker would be Donald Trump. He's not everybody's favorite person. Some people love him, some people hate him. But if you look at his life and how he did everything he did it through making deals, right? He made deals with the government. He made deals with publishers. He made deals with businesses. Like, people like, oh, well, this brand and that brand failed. Yeah, but how many other brands did he have deals with versus somebody else who has one brand that fails and everything's gone? So, and there's people in Asia and there's other people you can look at for examples of this, but he's the most famous. So what does it look like if you're a deal maker to say, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to look for how I can provide right now, not something in the future, but right now, a solution that by finishing it up and closing it, it creates wealth for me and for all the people that are involved. And so that becomes the value. Now, the downside of the deal maker is oftentimes, they can end up burning one bridge to be able to create another one, right? Oftentimes they can be in a spot where, the detail and like engineering things and making things work and the systems is also can be a little bit of a drain. Now, one of my favorite deal makers, this guy actually came into my life. I was giving a speech on a stage in Austin. It's a mastermind type event. He comes up to me after the event and he goes, dude, I loved everything that you said. We're sitting there. It was this like little lounge. And he goes, I used to be a NASA scientist. Everything I did was data and analysis and all that stuff. And he's like, it just felt like such a grind. Now that I've taken this test you're talking about and I'm a deal maker, it's given me complete permission to do things absolutely differently in my life. 6 months later, we're at a winery and at another mastermind event. And now he's at the winery, at the mastermind event, which was a very expensive event to be to. And he can now afford stuff like that because he'd been in his flow. And he told me, and I think I shared this with you, that he's like, you're in my gratitude meditation now every day. He goes, because like he introduced me to how to get into my flow. And I was like, cool, I'm in someone's gratitude meditation. But he's that deal maker, and he's done work with me. He's done work with a whole bunch of people in our community now because he's always seeking out and finding those deals. Powerful
awesome,
stuff.
dude. The deal maker too. That was another one. I you know how things click, but then they start stacking, and that's when you eventually become convinced because you have enough clicks, right? And like when you got to the deal maker, me and Jocelyn literally looked at each other in the back of the room because we were sitting in that like back corner by the dining room table or whatever it was, And we looked at each other and we realized, oh my gosh, we don't have that. And it made so much sense because like that entire quadrant of our business was just gone. Now, I've always tried to play the role of the deal maker, but the problem is that's away from me. That's getting way out of my comfort zone now. And like, I don't have enough tempo to really solidly make those deals. And I don't have the tempo to slow down. I can't slow down. So some of the deals that we've made have been falling apart. They've not been good, or we've resisted that, like going out and finding those leveraged deals like affiliates and JV partners and all that stuff. And man, it just like a light bulb, like that whole quadrant, we didn't hire it. And that's why we're struggling in some of those areas in our business.
You got it. And that's not going to be Jocelyn's natural either. Like, I mean, you trying to be a deal maker would be me trying to be a supporter. So I said earlier, I needed grace because supporters like just out of reach for me. Well, for the deal maker, right, that's just out of reach for the star. So a lot of times I tell stars, like the first person you need is a deal maker. You think again of a Hollywood actor, they need a Hollywood agent because the agent's going to be out there like knowing the people, locking down the deals and making sure it gets done so that the star can just keep shining. Because if the star has to stop shining to then go one-on-one, make a deal, right? That doesn't make as much sense, right? So the deal maker is in there making things happen, locking them down, and being slower, their tempo, right? All three of the tempo profiles are going to be slower. So
and that's frustrating too. You know what I'm saying? Because you feel like it's close enough, you should be able to do it. It's just past the supporter. It's almost like when I go back to mechanic. I know how that stuff works, and I feel like I should be able to tinker, but it just sucks my soul dry when I have to tinker. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it feels like it's right over there. It's like just on the horizon, and you just it's almost more frustrating than the opposite.
It to an extent, yeah. Because I feel the same way when it comes to like spreadsheets, because I have that mechanic wing, which we'll come to in a minute. I can create a spreadsheet. I love to engineer a good spreadsheet, man. Get my formulas in there and all that.
Right.
Love it. But overseeing that spreadsheet, entering the data on a weekly basis, no way, because that's just out of reach. Right. So let's rotate now from that person who's a combination of the summer and the fall, which is the people and the timing. And let's move to where they're really just right in the middle. So they're all timing. Like the creator, they're in between extroverted and introverted. So they can go to people or they can go to systems, right? They can go either way, but they're definitely sensory like the deal maker. So they're going to be much more in the here and the now. And this person is what we call the trader. Now, the trader, this is going to be somebody that trades other people's assets. So whereas the creator might come up with a company and take it public, the trader never needs to take a company public because they just trade public company stocks. This is why creators make all of their money in their business and lose it all in the stock market, is because traders are the ones that are good at timing. And as a creator or as a dynamo, you're not going to be wanting to stick around all day and like watch the charts go up and down and up and down and up and down. So you end up getting distracted and losing focus. A trader doesn't do that. A trader is the best person at seeing what is the right price and what is the differential. So they see that and they're like, okay, I can buy here, sell here, buy here, sell here. And so they start trading things. Right. So another example of a trader would be somebody like George Soros trading stocks, or somebody like Ted Turner trading the actual video. Right. So it's like, oh, I'm going to acquire these videos and then I'm going to trade them. So the trader oftentimes isn't the entrepreneur. Right. There are trader entrepreneurs, but they're few and far between, because more often than not, you find that, the traders aren't coming up with ideas. And we live in a society where we're told that, to start a business, you've got to come up with an idea. But if you go to Singapore, that's a trader nation. There's tons of entrepreneurs over there that are finding ways to find arbitrage between buying low and selling high. So that's kind of the way that the trader works.
What I love about the trader too is like, this is another thing that I kind of have realized as I've been looking at this, is the trader also, that doesn't mean you're not the owner just because you're not the entrepreneur. Like I could see like Russell Brunson's definitely a star, like the guy that created ClickFunnels. But if he had never met his two business partners, one is his CEO who keeps the trains on time and keeps things running. If Russell was in charge of the trains on time, there'd be just trains on top of trains on top of trains. It wouldn't work. And then he also found the guy. He found the guy that also created the software, right? So he's got these elements in there, and I could see like not being an entrepreneur doesn't mean not being the owner. I mean, these are, you could have business partners that come together and form amazing partnerships because they each meet each other's need. You have a star and a deal maker and a lord, and all of a sudden you've got this power broker team that's just crushing everything. You got the people going and getting the deals. You got the stars shining bright. You got the lord on the back end crushing the software development, right? Like that. You can be anywhere on the spectrum in any of these quadrants, as an owner, as a not owner, as an owner and entrepreneur are not the same thing, right? And I want everybody to realize that if you realize I'm a trader, oh my God, I'm trying to create a product. No wonder I suck at this. You could go partner with a creator or a star or somebody, and you could make something amazing together that would never have even materialized if you tried to do it by yourself.
There's actually a pretty good word for what you call a trader who is an entrepreneur, and that word is arbitrageur. And as a person who finds the arbitrage or the difference between what something costs and what something can sell for. So you might find yourself as a trader, as Shane says, partnering up with somebody, or you might say, you know what, I've got a really good line on PPE, and I can get masks and gloves from this nation, and I can trade them to this nation. And that's the only thing you're entrepreneuring is just that differential. And you make $4 million this year. Like, this is about how do you build wealth, right? And so you can do that as a trader. Absolutely. Now there's another profile that's down here on this tempo, earth energy fall. And they're going to be all the way over in the introverted action dynamic. They're not going to be right in the middle trading, right? They're going to be just taking a look at the systems and timing. So opposite the deal maker on the bottom here, who's looking at people and timing, they're looking at systems and timing. And now this person we call the accumulator, who you've mentioned you have one on your team. This is the Warren Buffett archetype, right? So this is somebody who, unlike the trader who's buying and selling all the time, this is a person who buys and not all the time. So they're accumulating intelligently. And so you hear Warren Buffett say stuff like, rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, see rule number 1. And like, you laugh, but then you're a star, which is the opposite of an accumulator, and you're losing money all the time. But that doesn't matter because you can just make more tomorrow. So whatever, right? So it's like, how do I take Warren Buffett's advice? Well, the best way to take Warren Buffett's advice is just give him your money and let him invest it for you, because he has an investment track record that no star is going to be able to keep up with, because he can slow down and look at the detail and look at the numbers and position himself. And whereas the star is looking into the future, what could be, the creator's looking into the future, the accumulator oftentimes is looking at the present and the past. And they're saying, okay, well, the trend lines are taking us this direction. So based off of that, I'm going to position myself to have cash holdings, yada, yada, yada. Right? I remember Warren Buffett talked about when Bill Gates was first really getting things going, when they were friends. And Bill said to him, everybody's going to have a computer in their house. Like computers are going to change everything, Warren. You've got to invest in computers. And Warren looks at him and says, is it going to change whether or not people buy chewing gum? All right, I'm going to keep investing in Wrigley's. Right. So the accumulator doesn't think that way. The accumulator is not trying to guess the future. The accumulator is looking at what is. And so accumulators have a knack for timing. Right now, in my masterclass, we go into like who you should be teaming up with. For me, my third member should be an accumulator. And in the workshop you were just in, I actually had an accumulator come on the call and explain how to like take a just really different look at your numbers in a like super entrepreneurial, easy to touch, not difficult, annoying accounting, grind my gears kind of way. And in a matter of minutes, he restructures without an additional dollar of revenue and takes you from being out of cash with negative bank balances in 3 weeks to like 6 weeks, just by changing timing and systems. Doesn't even touch top line revenue. So it's amazing the way that accumulators think, because it's so different from you and me. It's just, they see
so different.
The timing. And so the accumulator's challenge obviously is the blank page. If you ask them to write a book or come up with something or get on stage and give them a microphone, like just go watch Warren Buffett speak. Okay. There's genius behind there in there. You got to look for it. Right. But there's the charisma's not there. Right. He's not Shane. Right. He's Warren Buffett. Right. So we each have our powers, but we also have those kryptonites. And so oftentimes accumulator can not always be the most outgoing person or the best promoter, but they could be a good ambassador. Somebody that's not going to screw things up or say the wrong thing or embarrass your company. So if necessary, you can have them be like your agent. But I like them as project managers on a team. I like them managing my money if they're an entrepreneur.
And also, this is not about like whether you love people or hate people. It's where you flow, right? Like Angela, who is our White House chief of staff and our accumulator, who loves the bookshelves and stacks her little porcelain doll of the project up on the bookshelf, and now it's there, and leave it alone. We're done with that, right? Like, she loves the people aspect of her job. She loves the people aspect of the game. She loves the community. She feels good around people. But like she said, she wanted to be this linchpin of the people, right? She wanted to support the other people through her abilities to keep the trains running on time, to make sure that we finish projects. She's really, really big on finishing projects. And I own 300 domains, if that tells you anything. So like, we're just starting and finishing. And it's amazing when you get that finisher with a starter, you can accomplish things every day. And I tell you, man, another thing that taught what I've learned through Wealth Dynamics, probably better than anything I've ever learned, is how to release my ego, because my ego makes me feel like I should be able to do all this, and I'm in charge, and I'm in control, and I'm roaring down the hill on my horse yelling freedom, whatever. But like, I had to let go of my schedule, and I had to let someone else tell me when I needed to be somewhere. Angela sends me a message every morning, tells me where I'm supposed to be. She reschedules everything for me. She schedules everything for me now. I give her blocks of time. Like, that's my part. She doesn't know when I want to do things, so I give her blocks of time to schedule certain things in, but she controls the minutes. And it's been so wonderful the last few weeks, just letting that go. It's freed me to go do what I do best. And it's because we have like the opposite skills. Now, here's the next one. This is Jocelyn, guys. You want to hear what Jocelyn is? It's coming up. Is the Lord. Tell me about the Lord.
Yeah. So, when you talk about the finishers, like, for the accumulator, that's the first of the steel energy, the metal energy, the introverted action dynamic that we'll be going over here. But there's two left. And the next one is going to be now moving up. So we've gone down the square over the right, now across the bottom. So now we're going back up and we're saying, okay, well, this person is going to be all in the winter energy, metal, steel, which is going to be data and systems and security and certainty and safety and knowing what's happening around the corner, right? That is what they're optimizing for. Now the Lord, this is going to be somebody like Larry Page, right? He oversees the world's data, the world's information. This could be like a landlord, somebody that, oversees property, or, a property management company. If you own a property management company and you have 10 clients and they each give you 10% of the rent, you're basically owning as much as one property and you didn't buy anything. So lords are the masters of management, not people, but data and information. The masters of making sure all of the details are taken care of. And the Lord is the person that can find an extra $1 million of profit without generating an extra dollar of revenue, because they can see the opportunities for saving, right? So your lords can be great at catching the detail and spell checking and stuff like that on a team, or as the investor / entrepreneur, they're the person who maximizes their path to wealth by owning access to cash flow. So if you think about iStock Photo, that's a Lord business, right? They don't take the pictures. They just own the cash flow of the photos, right? Owning something like Netflix might be a system where, you're not having to create things. I know Netflix does produce now, but originally they didn't. So they would just own the cash flow. People pay them monthly. So anything that you can rent out, right, is going to be the thought process of the Lord. But this is metal energy. And so these people, I could tell Shane, hey Shane, you want to go to Mexico next Friday? And he might seriously consider going to Mexico next Friday.
That's right, baby. Fire up the jet. Yeah. Let's do it, man. I'm ready to get out of here. Let's go. Ironically, I am going to Mexico.
Hold on. Yeah. So if you say that to a Lord, they're going to be like, well, hold on a second. I need more heads up. So when I spring a last minute meeting on a Lord, they're going to be like, whoa, hold your horses. Versus, the stars and the creators, we're much more, starting quickly. So the Lord is somebody that is going to keep the trains running on time. So your accumulator can sometimes be in their Lord wing when they're saying, okay, well, let's just make sure everything is in place and it's all proper and all the details taken care of and all the paperwork is processed and all the stuff is filed. And while to somebody like you or me, that may feel like a grind, to that person, they thrive in that environment, right? Which I want to echo your sentiment earlier, which isn't that lords don't love people. Some of my favorite people are lords, right? And we love hanging out. But again, if I just show up on that person's doorstep and want to hang out, they're like, I've got a 30-minute window on Thursday. You can't just show up on my door, right? And so there's right. this, I need the certainty. I need to optimize for predictability. That's where the Lord really shines.
Oh my gosh, that word you just used, dude, predictability. Jocelyn just said this to me the other day. She said, I like to do things myself because people are unpredictable. That she just said that to me the other day. And she's like hardcore Lord, like all Lord. Like she's like touching the L on the outside of the square, Lord, right? And it's like she doesn't mind to delegate. Like she doesn't really want to be in the nuts and bolts, but she wants to sit down and look at the nuts and bolts and figure out where the inefficiency is. She wants to ask the question, like, why are we doing this? Like, this doesn't make sense. We could make more money if we did this. But like, she just said that to me the other day, like, people are unpredictable. I love people, but people are unpredictable in a work setting. And she constantly leans back into that. I don't want to say not delegating, but like, I can do this and I'll just take care of it. Does that make sense?
Yep. And then, there's an extent to here where we've talked about mostly profiles, but then there's mastering business, right? So there's certain things that, even if it's your profile, like maybe somebody else should be handling it because you're at a higher level in your business at this point. Like you've gotten to a point where you could hand off some tasks. So even as a creator, I actually don't build a lot of my own stuff. I hand it to the creators on my team and they build some stuff for me. So, and we won't get into that here, but like in the masterclass, for example, we dig into the wealth spectrum. We talk about, okay, well, what would this level Lord do? And what would that level Lord do? Or what would this level creator do?
Yeah.
That's really how you start to contrast and build teams, is to know like, what can people actually manage? So yeah, people are unpredictable. How can I create a system in which my people become more predictable so that I use things like checking in with people, rehearsals, scripts, that those are the things the Lord would do to optimize predictability in the chaos of people. So you can still kind of bring it to play.
And one thing I loved what you said in Colorado at the workshop we were at was, it's an energy, not an excuse, right? So like in the beginning of your journey, maybe you don't have 10 people on your team. So you can still do these other things. It's not that you can't do them, and you may need to do them to get to the point where you can build your team, right? So don't think you're just so pigeonholed. The flexibility of this system allows me to go down and make some deals, even though I'm not the best at it, because maybe I don't have a deal maker and I just can't find one yet, right? Or it allows me to reach over and, okay, I'm going to go tinker with this stupid automation for a minute. And I can do these things. It doesn't mean you can't do them. It just means you eventually you should not be doing them, basically, right?
Not if you want to live in flow. The great finisher, the great tinkerer, the mechanic. So this is right next to the creator, right? Because it's all up there at the top in that spring energy, but it's also on the system side. So this is opposite again of where you're at, Shane, as a star being, dynamo and people, or dynamo and blaze. And instead, this is dynamo and systems, or dynamo and steel. And so this person is somebody that can see what something could be if it were better. So the creator comes up with a product from nowhere, blank page. The mechanic goes in and goes, yeah, that creator's product can be way better if you changed this and tinkered that and made that different and changed this thing. Sam Walton was a mechanic. Jeff Bezos is a mechanic. Mark Zuckerberg is a mechanic. All of these guys took existing models and improved them, right? What does Amazon do that is really that novel, right? There's not like Amazon now does this thing that no one ever did. Deliver products off the internet, that already did that. Process payments online, people already did that. Ship things to your house, people already did that. So what does Amazon do? It improved the process. It made it faster and easier for you to buy things, to have them shipped, to connect to producers. And it did that on the buy side and the sell side. So he optimized the purchase and delivery of products. Well, the last person to do that before Jeff Bezos was also a mechanic, who was Sam Walton, who optimized the purchase and delivery of products to the largest number of people. Now, interesting that one mechanic kind of is going to put the other mechanic out of business, right? But it's interesting when you look at this, mechanics, because of this ability to see all of the detail and tinker and get things figured out, oftentimes don't commit to things unless they know they can finish it. And so it can be a hard time. Like you try and get a mechanic enrolled in an idea. They're like, but this and that and the other thing, you got to change this and this thing doesn't work. Well, how's that going to work? And how's this going to work? And we're like, I just want to get buy-in on the idea. We can figure that out later. And they're like, no, you got to have it all figured out. Otherwise you're going to start something and not finish it. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. Right. So the mechanic kind of sees things in a way that we don't, but they're right next to the creator. Right? The creator does have a mechanic wing, so I can tinker. The mechanic does have a creator wing, so they can come up with stuff, but they're going to be most in flow when they have something that's already there and they're improving it and they're optimizing it and they're making it better. Right? And so they're bringing those systems and ideas together to make better systems.
Yeah, man. The task,
that is your whole welcoming square.
We've got a mechanic on our team, but this was horrific. She was hired to be customer service. And it was totally a bad fit, dude. It was like, but she's so good at it, right? Because she had like a counseling background and she loves to tinker with people, right? And get them like all that right. But then I remember a specific task I'd given her one time. I said, hey, I want to do a new long-term nurture sequence for our members. I want you to create it from scratch. Just go build the thing. Oh my gosh, she struggled so hard. She got it. She did it. You know, it was like it was close enough. But she was like, man, I wish you would just write this and let me play with it. You know? And I was like, yeah, I should have done that. That would have been so much better if I just went over to my little creator wing and I just wrote all the emails for her. And I'm like, here, make it better. See if there's flow. Is there an automation off of a click that I didn't think about? Is something whatever? Like, just go do that. And it would have just been so much better. But I didn't know any better because we did the mistake of hiring. We hired a great person and it was just the wrong seat on the bus. And like this clearly indicates who should be on the right seat on the bus. And that's what I love about this system so much is it's so black and white. I mean, when you get into this, and people, you're going to get into this. You got to get into this because I'm going to be talking about it forever now, but on every podcast I ever do. But like, if you get into this, it just answers so many questions, and it makes even like challenges less hard. It doesn't mean things aren't. Sometimes the actual choice is difficult when you get to the point of decision, right? But the clarity and the removal of 3 or 4 choices down to 1 or 2. Like, you know, you can really get down and decide things very fast just by thinking. Like, even in our tasks, like we think, who should do this? Like in our job, like I was doing ads about 2 months ago, and I was doing them and I was doing the creative, but they were never getting started because I was never setting them up. And, you know, I just had a Google Drive full of ads, and I was like, look how good these ads are that no one's seeing. Right. But then we just had a team meeting, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Shouldn't our accumulator make sure that we get the ads scheduled after I create them? And then shouldn't the mechanic and our Lord be watching the data to see and improve the ads, and then tell me to go make some new creative? And then our creator on our team should be editing them and making them look cool and beautiful and all the copy. Like, we figured out that it's not that you're delegating tasks, you're delegating roles for a task, and everybody on your little, you know, small and mighty team has a role to play. And it's really cool to see that, man, because everybody feels valued once they know what they are and they actually have tasks that, you know, are in their flow. It's amazing.
It's the beauty of the way this thing works, you know, and it scales with you. It starts when it's just you recognizing, okay, well, what am I best at, and how can I plug into somebody else's team where I'm doing just that thing? And then it becomes, okay, well, if I want to be doing my own thing, what's the minimum number of people I actually need? And, you know, I show you, like, you really only need 2 other people. That's and right. So if you can get those 2 first people, like, you're golden to grow to the next level and the next level and the next level until, you know, you have 1,000 employees, if that's what you want. Right. So the whole thing, it's beautiful. It scales.
Love it, dude. Hey, real quick before we, I want to sign off here, tell everybody where to find you, put links everywhere, because I mean, I can't give, I don't always do this, like, but I mean, this has really changed the way we think about our business. I mean, it was a paradigm shift moment. I can look back and think of 3 or 4 moments. Like, the moment I realized online business was real, that was a paradigm shift in my thinking. When that moment that I realized that the membership model was just gorgeous and beautiful and was so possible for everybody to actually implement, right? But I really think, like, as I've struggled with team for 2 years, I really have. I've really struggled with building a team, and we have hired and fired, and we've had whole teams and then lost them all in 1 week because they all quit, right? But this has been the moment where I've really realized, like, this is the next level. This is how you build a team. This is the way that you do it. So real quick, you know, maybe 2 or 3 minutes here, 5 minutes. Just tell me, like, again, I don't think we've got the whole story of, like, how you discovered it. We kind of touched on it earlier, and then how you went all in on that, and you realized that you had that paradigm shift, right? Like, maybe just give me a brief of that, and then we'll wrap up the show.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said earlier, I was burned out. It wasn't that I'd never succeeded at anything. I had succeeded, but I had done it through hustle and grind and grind and grind. And I was just at a place where I needed a shift and a change. I discovered the wealth dynamics system. After probably 6 months, 9 months of knowing my profile, I finally discovered the wealth spectrum system, right? Which is the levels of entrepreneurial mastery. And I realized that I had inadvertently bumped my way all the way up to like the 4th level. And I was like, okay, cool. But I just could not seem to get to that 5th level. And so I was like, I've got to do something to be able to do that. And so I made the decision that I was going to full force just focus on learning this system inside and out and applying it to my business and bringing on team and growing my company. And I figured the best way to do that is to teach. So the best way to learn is to teach. And so I was already teaching these workshops all the time, teaching people how to invest in real estate and build companies. So I just started teaching this stuff to people and then became so in love with it that I hopped on an airplane. I flew to Asia. I went and sat down with the guy that created the program at a little table in Bali. I mean, it was gorgeous. The birds are tweeting. The sun is out. We're like in between 2 rice paddies. And I'm sitting here with this like genius guy that decoded the I Ching for business like 15 years ago. And I'm like, we've got to take this to America. I've been in the rooms. I've literally had over 100 workshops, an average of like 60 people, and I've had hundreds of people that I've spent 3 days with. I know what they're looking for. This is it. This is the blueprint. This is the model. What does it take for us to bring this back to the United States? And so we struck up a partnership in 2019, came back here. Thousands of people now have come to our live events. Obviously, we're not doing those because of COVID, but now our virtually live events. And we've been able to introduce this to people like you who, in just weeks after discovering it, you start to change everything in your life and your business and the way things operate. You get massive discoveries that help in your personal and your business relationships. My wife has come on as my partner. We started a company called the Alliance of Conscious Entrepreneurs, which is more of a community than anything else. And it's people that speak this language. Because that's the cool thing is when someone can hop in a Facebook group and be like, hey, I'm looking for a supporter. It's like, boop, 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 boop. A bunch of people raise their hands. So it's just that like we are so all in on this. I completely walked away from I guess you could say 15-year career, 5-year contract that I'd been in, and decided I'm going all in on teaching people how to utilize this system to be able to get themselves and get their lives and get their teams into flow. And that's all we do now is teach this stuff. It's powerful.
And my favorite thing is that I learned in the workshop this weekend is that when you build it, the first reason we want to build a team, I think people trick us into thinking it's just to get rid of tasks we don't like. And that's part of it, but you got to find the people that like those tasks. That's the first thing. The next thing is, man, like, we have big goals here in Flipped Lifestyle and at Membership Masters is, before I leave this earth, I want to help 100,000 families start building, grow a membership site that makes $60,000 or more a year so that they can find freedom for their family and their kids and everything else. And I've realized more and more that until you get this team thing right, you can't really go after a goal that big, And this has been the key that has unlocked the magic of team for us. And I feel like we're so at the beginning. Like we're just building this team but it's going to be awesome now. And I know it's going to be awesome because we've got this system like to fix that. And a great quote you had at the workshop this weekend was, your team should reduce grind, not just for the owner, but for each other. And it should increase profits because money makes the mission, right? That's something that we say here. And if you can reduce grind and you can build a team of happy people and lead a customer base of happy customers, and you can increase those profits, I mean, that's magic. That's not just flow, man. That's magic on another level. And bro, I am glad that you are spreading the magic all over the world with Wealth Dynamics, dude. I'm so glad that you decided to bring this to America and tell business owners like us. And I know that anybody listening that goes and looks at this for about 30 minutes, you're going to have your absolute mind blown and you're going to realize this is the next level for your business. So how can people find you online? Where can they go to get to that next level and learn more about this? And again, guys, I know we just talked an hour and a half about Wealth Dynamics and the profiles. You have no idea how much deeper the rabbit hole goes, and you have got to get in to some of this stuff. So Trey, tell everybody where to find you online.
Yeah, so the easiest place to find me, my website is TheFlow.Coach. So yes, that's .coach. I didn't even know you could get a .coach. It's not .com. So TheFlow.Coach is my website. And if you do /gift, I have a page that I created for your audience where they can go take a free quiz if they just want to kind of like figure out which of those 4 elements they are. They can watch a video real quick for free. That's basically a breakdown, like 18 minutes on how the system works, or they can sign up for a masterclass and take their test. So they can do all of those things right there on TheFlow.Coach /gift. And we even made the masterclass like a special rate. It's basically what you got to see in Colorado, but in a virtual setting.
Love it, man. I highly recommend everybody go that. Check the show notes for today's links, and you will find them there. You do not want to go wherever you are, pull over, go to TheFlow.Coach/gift and just do it right now, because you are not going to regret it. It's going to change everything. All right, guys, that wraps up my interview with Trey Stinnett from TheFlow.Coach. I really want you to go to that website. I really want you to check that out. He's got a free gift for you at TheFlow.Coach/gift. That's GIFT. And I guarantee you, I have put my money where my mouth is on this one. I have been through Trey's workshops. I will continue to go to Trey's workshops because I want to learn everything I can about the wealth dynamic system, because I have seen the amazing difference that it has made, not only in my life, because this stuff applies to your life, but also in our business, on our team, and even in our membership and our community. And if you need help outside of that team dynamic, outside of that wealth dynamic, if you need help starting, building, or growing your own online business, if you want help getting a membership off the ground, going out and finding 100 people to pay you $50 a month to make $60,000 a year, maybe go out and get 200 people to give you that so you make $120,000 a year. Or if you want to push the envelope and you want to create $1 million membership, you want to scale what you're already doing, we would love to help you over in the Flipped Lifestyle community. All you have to do is go to flippedlifestyle.com/free. That's FLIPPED lifestyle.com/free. And you can start a 30-day free trial inside of the Flipped Lifestyle community today. We have all the training you need to start, build, launch, and grow an online business based on membership sites. And we help people every single day get their online business off the ground, launch their membership, and even grow into becoming membership masters themselves. So go to flippedlifestyle.com/free today. Take control of your life. Take control of your money. Take control of your time and build an online business that could change your family's future. That's all the time we have for this week's Membership Masters podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you love the show, download a few episodes, hit subscribe, and make sure you go leave us that 5-star review so that we can reach other people with our message of hope and memberships and the future. And until next time, get out there, be consistent, be prolific, be relentless, and do whatever it takes to become a membership master yourself. We'll see you then.